So this week I'm turning some of those lovely fabrics that I processed a couple of weeks ago into the costume for Charlie. So here you can see I am inspired by the lichen on a tree. I'm just cutting up the gridded fabric into a really the kind of lovely bobbly texture. And here are some little fern leaves. My son actually collected these for me. He called them his woodland beauties. What a beautiful idea. And I'm going to transfer that into some of that PVA'd silk-like fabric. Whilst I am working, because I work on my own, I quite often will listen to an audiobook, and this was a really great one I've been listening to recently called The Toy Maker. It's by Tom Carron, who was an industrial designer. He designed things like the chopper, bike and the marble run. And he had these amazing 13 ingredients for a successful piece of design. So I thought I'd just talk about that a little bit while you watch me work. So the ingredients are 1. Sculptural quality, 2. Colour, 3. Structural logic, 4. Respect for materials, 5. Simplicity, 6. Theme, 7. Solidity, 8. Joins, 9. Focus, 10. Details, 11. Handleability, 12. Cleanability, and 13. Piquancy, which is like spiciness or flavour or wit. And these design principles I just thought were so relevant to when puppet making or even theatre design. And the whole time when you're designing, you're really thinking about how the design is serving the story and the character. But in terms of the aesthetic, it's all of those lovely things like sculptural quality and colour really play into how the audience is seeing the puppet. So taking like roundness as a theme, or that kind of shape, that structural shape, and really experimenting with it. So for Charlie, I have taken like the woodland as my theme, and really leaning into those kind of natural shapes that you find and those natural colours that you find, and really following through on like, if he was a character that lived in the forest, what would he have access to, and how would he go about adorning himself for the day-to-day life of a woodland creature. So when I've been thinking about the design for Charlie, I've been really looking at like ruggedness, because if you're living in the woods you need protection, but then also the found materials you might find there. So later you'll see that I've taken the silver birch bark and turned that into like a wrist protectors, and here I'm using really like natural materials like leather and fabrics that have been made to look like wood and moss and things, to make these lovely boots that you can see on screen right now. So the leather I've used here is all found from people taking apart sofas and things like that. So it's all like upcycled leather, but it's such a great strong natural material, that when it's left over from a sofa, it's such a shame for it to go in the bin. So yeah, I always try and grab some of that if I come across anything like that. This is also a really great audiobook, by the way. It's a kind of a sci-fi historic thing by Octavia Butler. Brilliant. So here's the silver birch that I was talking about. Taking that bark cloth, which is a real natural fibre, and it already has a lovely texture to it, and painting into it to give it those kind of colours and textures of the silver birch. So starting with a base layer of white and then adding in some lovely darkness just to lift it. Back to Tom Carron's 13 successful ingredients. The one that I really love is piquancy, which is like the spiciness or the wit or the flavour. Just having something that just gives it something a little bit different, a little bit of cheekiness. I always think just makes the design so much more exciting. in puppetry I think about adding things that give you movement without needing to move as well. I call it like giving it movement for free, or like a secondary movement, and that also just adds to just character within stuff, rather than it just being a flat and beautiful thing. It's lovely to have sculptures, but puppetry is just designed to be character brought to life. And so yeah, that kind of idea of kind of spiciness really appeals to me. So here I am wrapping that silver birch fabric that I made earlier, and using it as like a wrist protector. I'm using some of that PVA'd silk-like fabric and turning it into like a natural twine. You can really do that, make natural twine with things like stalks of nettles and things. So you can actually, or reeds. You dry it out and you can turn it into natural binding, which is like the origins of where rope comes from. And so that's a really fun thing you can just do in the woodlands. So I imagine that's how it would be attached, because you wouldn't have access to things like zips and Velcro and glue and things like that. Sort of the Star Wars logic of costuming, where if you look at their costumes, they don't really have any zips or buttons and things. It's all like tied and buckled and stuff, because there was like the design logic really ran through the design of Star Wars. So there you go. Puppets to Star Wars to Tom Karen industrial designer, the world of my brain. So yeah, so once it's all tied on, you may have been looking going, the arms have fallen off the puppet. Yes, I know. So it was quite helpful that I was falling off, because they weren't flapping around through all the making process. But here I am just about to reattach them quite firmly. So I'm using some araldite just on the ends of the pins. You'll see these little pins I've got in my hand. So it's just a little bit of araldite on them just to make sure they don't come out again. Putting them in and giving them a good bash. When it's freshly made, you can sort of hammer it in, and it does hold quite well, because it's quite an old puppet. The holes have worn a bit loose, so I'm just gluing that in, but making sure that I still maintain that movement, so it's not so tight that you can't move. So there he is. He is all costumed up, and the next stage is going to be putting him back on his controls. I realised after I finished doing all this design that I mislaid the controls somewhere, so I'm actually going to make a new set. So I thought I'd share that with you next week. So if you have enjoyed this, don't forget to like and subscribe, and it will bring you back to me. So next time I upload a video, you can see what I've been doing. Thank you very much for following, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!